We'll start. Welcome everybody. As you see, I'm in the chair. Councillor White is on holiday and sends his apologies, as does Councillor Olszewski and Councillor Dimmond, and we have the wonderful Councillor Moffat substituting for Councillor Dimmond. So welcome. Thank you very much, everybody. So apologies, we've been through declaration of interest in relation to licensing matters. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any comments on the previous meeting, or can I take those as read? Thank you very much, Councillor Wortlick. Seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor Waring. Right. Although tonight, I'm sure you've all read the minutes, or the papers and everything, but there's nothing particularly controversial. Most of it is stuff we have to do by law, and it doesn't move very far from our current position. But I am going to ask the officer on my left, Nesta, to introduce each one, explain why it's here, and whether there's any variance from our current position. And that way, hopefully, we can move forward quite rapidly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the first report this evening is the Business and Planning Act 2020 update. So the Business and Planning Act received royal assent in July 2020 and made significant changes to help premises to survive and then bounce back from the pandemic lockdown. All the measures were put in place for a period up until September 2021. There is proposals that the government have announced that further support for business will be extended will extend the provisions for pavement licences to end on the 30th of September 2022. Draft regulations were laid on the 9th of June 2021, but they haven't as yet been passed. At the committee meeting on the 4th of August, members agreed that licences would be granted for a period of 12 months or to the expiry date on the 30th of September 2021, whichever was the soonest. Obviously, this extension of pavement licences would extend those provisions up until that end date, but no other amendments would be made to the conditions or that there was no fee or anything else. There's a couple of other areas where there's amendments or extensions in relation to off sales. So the measures originally included in the Act modified the provisions of the Licensing Act 2003 to provide automatic extensions to the terms of on-sale alcohol licenses to allow for off sales. It was designed to be a temporary measure to boost the economy, with the provisions lasting until the end of September 2021. Similar to the pavement licences, the governments have also announced that further to support businesses, they will be extending the provisions to allow on sales only premises to sell alcohol for consumption off premises to end on the 30th of September 2022. Draft regulations were laid in June, but haven't yet to be passed. The other bit that the Act allows is for temporary event notices. So the Alcohol Licensing Corona Regulatory Easements Amendment Regulations 2021, those really roll off the tongue, they do, which also cover off-sale relaxation, seek to amend the permissions in relation to temporary event notices limits for the calendar year 2022 and 2023. Currently, an individual can submit a maximum of 15 TENs that cover that period, maximum of 21 days in a calendar year. The regulations propose to extend the limits in 22 and 23 so that an individual could submit a maximum of 20 TENs that cover a maximum of 26 days within that calendar year. There's no further amendments proposed, and the proposals are as outlined in your report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marker. Are there anybody wishes to raise a comment, or does somebody like to move this, that we accept this? Thank you very much, Councillor Cooper. Thank you very much, Councillor John Williams, for seconding that. Item 4. No, have we? Sorry, item 5. Gambling Act. Take us through that, please, again, Nesta. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a review of the Gambling Act and the review of statement of licensing principles and the gambling policy that we have. So under section 349 of the Gambling Act 2005, the Council has a statutory duty to review its gambling statement set out in the gambling policy every 3 years. It must be published by the 3rd of January and be enforced by the 31st of January to ensure that there is a 28-day period between publication and implementation. A copy of the proposed policy for consultation is attached to your report as Appendix A. The Council last published its gambling policy in January 2019 and remains in place until January 2022. A number of minor amendments have been made to the policy implemented in 2019, and the main amendments are summarised as: the contents page has been reformatted to be displayed as a table, website links have been updated, dates have been updated, and wording and typographical matters have been amended. It's suggested or proposed that the updated draft policy be sent out for consultation following the timetable detailed in 5.2, which is on page 14 of your report. The recommendations remain as per the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Barker. Well, this is really just, we need to get this out and get the consultation done so that we can be within our legal limits for publishing and in due time. So has anybody got any comments, or can I take somebody to move this? Thank you very much, Councillor Wortlake. Thank you very much, Councillor Parker. We move on to item 6, Food Safety Service Plan. If you want to take us through that, please, Nesta. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Food Safety Service Plan for 2021-2022. The Council has a statutory duty to provide food safety services. We have to maintain a register of all food businesses operating in the borough, implement a risk-based programme of inspections and interventions, provide advice to local businesses about how they can comply with legal requirements, investigate complaints about contaminated food, unhygienic premises and food poisoning outbreaks, and in the most serious of cases, take enforcement action to protect the public. The Food Standards Agency requires local authorities to produce service-specific plans about how they're delivering their service in a specified format that can be reported to members. Attached in Appendix A is the Food Safety Service Plan for 2021-22, which outlines the work in the current year, as well as a review of last year's performance. You will see within that report that last year's performance was significantly lower than previous years due to COVID pandemic. Many of the premises that we inspect were closed, and also the officers that were routinely undertake food inspections and food safety work were diverted to undertake COVID type work. So you'll see for this year there's a significant backlog of work to catch up on. The recommendation is that you receive and approve the report, and there's no amendments to that, Chair.
Thank you very much. I actually have one question. Under section 3, service delivery, we've got a little table under the National Food Hygiene Rating Scheme, which shows that 791 premises are in the very good category, but it's got 2 requiring major improvement and 2 requiring improvement necessary. Do we have a list? Do we publish a list of who's of all these 914 premises with so we can avoid the one that needs major improvement?
Yes, Chair, they're all published on the website. So if you go to food.gov.uk, you can either search by the name of the premises, or you can search by rating and the Borough Council, so you can identify them.
Fantastic, thank you. That's really useful information. Are there any other questions? Councillor Parker?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just need to ask Nesta, how often do you take out these random, do you take out random spot checks, or is it just waiting for the amount of level of complaints before you officers act on it?
Thank you, Chair. You mean in terms of a routine inspection? Those are typically done unannounced. I will say we have modified procedures slightly in light of COVID because we need to obviously undertake our own risk assessment and be satisfied that our officers are operating in a correct way. So they are done on risk. So you'll see in the report that we rate the premises from A to E, and that determines the frequency. So if the premises, so that's under 3.1 on page 54, you'll see the highest risk premises, they're inspected every 6 months, category B's every 12 months, and then they go down to E, lowest risk, which could be up to 5 years. So typically we don't announce visits unless there's a particular reason to do so. It doesn't matter on complaint, it goes on the basis of what we found during our previous visit. We have another area of work if we were to receive a lot of complaints where we would also investigate those separate to a normal food hygiene inspection.
So for a lower risk, a high risk, sorry, it would be a lot more frequent.
Yes, it's a risk-based inspection programme. So those that are either serving the highest risk food, undertaking the highest risk processes, or serving high-risk vulnerable people would be visited more often. You know, we do that purely to protect, you know, the public as much as we can. So depending on either the processes they undertake or the people that they're serving would mean that they get inspected more often than somewhere, you know, which would maybe selling shelf stable pre-wrapped food where the risk is very low.
Can I take somebody to move that? Thank you very much, Councillor Waring. Thank you very much, Councillor Cooper. Agenda item 8. This is the, you'll have all have seen this before. It's been sent to members electronically. So it's just the format for, which has been amended a couple of times, I think, for the forthcoming year. And I don't think there's anything controversial in that. So Councillor Wortlake's moving that, thank you. And Councillor Heatham seconding it. The agenda item 10 is just the disclosure, is the minutes of public section subcommittee meetings. And the ones I've been involved in were all perfectly okay. So can we accept those? Or is sorry? Agreed. Councillor Heatham and Councillor Waring. And next is